All right, hello everyone. I'm Wes Jenks. I'm actually the producer of the 3rd annual Connecticut Cannabis Expo, and I am extremely pleased to introduce Eric and Meg, 2 close friends of mine. I wouldn't really know where to begin, but I got introduced to Eric through Connecticut legislators here in the state probably 7-8 years ago, and the first thing he said to me was, Wes, I will have 5 cannabis businesses open before Connecticut even reopens their licensure process. And he was dead ass right about that. These guys and girls are literally famous cannabis people, and I'm proud to call them friends of mine. They run Canna Provisions right now in Lee and Holyoke, Massachusetts, and they have some incredible insight to offer on cannabis business and a whole wealth of experience going decades now at this point. So I'm really pleased to have them here. So give them a little round of applause, and they're going to tell you about their awesome journey.
Thank you.
Well, here we go. So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. And I'm so glad you're here at XPO Canna. What a great event.
Yes, welcome here, everyone from XPO Canna, folks who are looking to get into the industry, operators, friends, activists, people who are supporting the industry as a whole. Really excited to be here today. 227,108. Does anyone know what that number means? 227,108. No? Okay.
All right. How about 24.4%? Is that ringing a bell with anybody? All right. We'll get to that number as well. So today, Eric, is a bit of a coming home for you.
Yes, yes, it is. I no longer live in Connecticut, but it was here in Connecticut that a lot of my modern cannabis journey began. It was 13 years ago that I formed Connecticut Normal and was the executive director. We did an awful lot of really great things, and it was a lot of those people that I met at that time. So many of them are still friends today, but it's those folks that and those memories that really drive me in a really big way to continue to do what I do in the cannabis industry.
I will say it drives us both. And it's so wonderful, excuse me, to see how far cannabis has come in the past 14 years. It's really incredible, from everything that's going on in multiple states, including out here in the Northeast, to this wonderful event that we're here enjoying. And I think the best part is it reminds us every day about the freedom that we all celebrate in certain states, in certain places, in certain license types, etc. But today, there's still tens of thousands of Americans incarcerated for cannabis. And today, there are thousands and thousands of medical refugees that are out of their states, homes, support systems, in different states, trying to get safe access to life-saving medicine for either themselves or their families.
Yeah, in fact, just during the time that we are talking here today, there will be 25 Americans arrested and charged with cannabis crime.
So we all know there's still a lot of work to do, and these are the things that drive us. These are the reasons why we get up every single day to do this work, because there's nothing easy about this work. No,
absolutely. We find for sure that you've got to have passion, because this business is hard.
It's incredibly hard. And I don't think you know how hard it is. And it's kind of like a frog in a pot, honestly. You just wake up one day and you're boiling.
Absolutely. And honestly, and I see that there's some friends who are operators here as well, and people who are part of our company. And we all know that this business is way too hard to do if you do not have some sort of passion driving you. And for us, we've got a combined 27 years in legal cannabis together. And we've certainly done and seen a lot and met people from all over this country and had inspirations from people, some people who are in this room right now. But also, it's not just all those things that we've done. For me personally, I draw inspiration every single day to day, sometimes hour by hour, sometimes minute by minute, by someone who is a true legend in legal cannabis. My life and business partner for 11 years now, and a woman who I would argue has done more for the normalization of legal cannabis than any other human on the planet. And that's Meg Sanders.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Meg.
So I'll also tell you, our company, Canna Provisions and Smash Hits Cannabis in Western Massachusetts, you know, we're driven by a passion, by ideals. We try to do things differently and honor the road that we have traveled. And one of the things that we do is we meet every single new employee on day one. Every single new employee on day one hears Meg and my story and what is behind what we do and what drives us. And so we'd like to start by doing that. So Meg, if you want to start off telling a little bit about your story, what inspired you to get into cannabis?
I would love to tell you. So I didn't come to cannabis through maybe the normal way. And I don't know that there is a normal way, but I like to think that. My first experience with the power of cannabis was actually with a family member who was diagnosed late stage cancer in a state that did not have safe access. And it was the one thing that actually brought him relief. And without it, he was on every other drug possible that was not benefiting him whatsoever. And we made a decision as a family at the time with my then husband to make sure he had medicine more in a palliative fashion to help him through end of life. And it truly changed our entire experience with this palliative care. He was able to come and sit at the dinner table. He was able to eat supper. He was much more pleasant to deal with, because he just wasn't knocked out on narcotics the whole time. And I truly believe that cannabis gave him the safest and most pleasant exit in this life that you could get under the circumstances. And we took enormous risk as a family at the time to do that. It was driving across several states with a lot of weight because we didn't want to have to do it more than once. And what's 1 pound or 10, right? At that point, who cares? You're going to get popped, it's going to be bad. So we were really dedicated and committed to that. And through that, I started to really understand there was way more to it than just having fun. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm a big proponent of using cannabis for fun. And at the time too, I was working in a small financial office, and this is kind of parallel path with Colorado, 2008, 2009, the magical Cole memo that told us, yeah, let's just open dispensaries everywhere. And it doesn't matter. There's no licensing. It doesn't matter. Let's just do it. Along with the, obviously, Colorado constitutional amendment that was very clear about that as well, or so we assessed. And I was working, like I said, in a small financial office. I was director of compliance, managing a whole bunch of traders around the world. And little glass ceiling story. I'd figured out a pretty cool market. The company made a lot of money in a very short period of time. And I was like, hey, I think I could do this over and over. And went to the partners and said, I'd like to do this over. And they're like, yeah, we'd like you to keep doing that, but I want a piece of the action. And they said no. So this was perfect timing, like absolute perfect timing. I wasn't going to go any further in this company. Cannabis is getting off the ground in Colorado. And I had a friend who was investing in a business, and lo and behold, that's how I started actually using the skill set of compliance, which is what I came from in my role at this financial office. And basically started working with our attorneys and understanding the laws as they were coming out, bills that were going to be passed, and trying to be as proactive as possible. Because as you guys are probably aware, if you're in the regulated world at all, it's kind of like regulators come up with the rules and then you have 90 days to figure it out, go. And that was kind of what happened in Colorado. And then I will just say I'm kind of a junkie entrepreneur. I love starting things. I love building things. And it was just a great opportunity to start in compliance, end up as a CEO relatively quickly, and led that business for about 7 years.
And that's where we first met when you
That's
were
how
the
we
CEO
connect.
of that company as well. My story of when I first really discovered, let's call it the wrong ways that cannabis was being portrayed in America, is I was in college and I was working for a congressman, and I was an intern, and so interns answer phones. And I'll tell you exactly how old it is by this next part. I got a phone call, and it was 3 people, a mother, a father, and a son, on landlines in their home. And they proceeded to tell me the story. And the story was that the son had a relationship with his resident assistant at college that never works out, and it never worked out here, and it didn't end well. And that resident assistant targeted him and went into his room and found a seed, a single seed. And that resident assistant called the dorm security. And the dorm security called campus police. And the protocol for campus police was to call the Boston police. And so now, again, for one seed, this person has his resident assistant, dorm security, campus police, and Boston police. And he was arrested. And he was arrested, again, for a seed, and kicked out of his dorm. Since he was kicked out of his dorm, he lost his Pell Grant. Because he lost his Pell Grant, he lost his Stafford loan. And so now this person who just 7-8 months earlier had all the promise in the world is now kicked out of college, can't afford to pay. And by the way, he's facing a felony for a seed. I'm still getting mad at it all these years later telling this story. And I was incensed, and I was also concerned because I had a lot more than a seed in my dorm room, let me tell you. So I went upstairs and went to a staffer and told her, knew that she covered this kind of thing, and told her this story all animated. And about 3/4 of the way through, she pulls out this stack of manila folders. And I'm just like, what is this? What are you doing? And she drops them down on her desk and says, boom, that's this semester. And it was from that moment that I really saw clearly that the war on drugs was a war on people, and still was many, many years away from seeing exactly how it was also just a war on Black, brown, and underserved communities as well. But that was my first introduction to it, and that led me to go to my first freedom rally, where we were outnumbered by police at the rally. And but that being said, I went about my life. I was a political operative for about 20 years. I got married, had a mortgage, 2 cars, 2 kids, 2 dogs, did all of that. But I know I just glossed over that I was a political operative. And because of that, I really needed to get my soul back at some point. So from there, that's when I decided that I was going to really focus on the social justice side of cannabis. I gave away my company and decided to, again, found Connecticut NORML. And that's what led me to actually meet Meg as well when we passed decriminalization here and legalized medical cannabis as well. It was, it's those times as well that absolutely still drive me to this day.
It's the passion.
It's definitely the passion.
Because it's so hard. And it's easy to get caught up in the big dreams of opening and getting your business going, and the visions of grandeur that we all have. But once you're in it and you're doing the hard work every single day, and I see a lot of my friends that are in the business shaking their heads, you need something that drives you to keep getting up and getting to work every day sometimes. And this passion about making sure that everyone has safe access to cannabis, that families don't have to leave their support systems, and that people aren't getting arrested for this plant. Those are all very, very important things for us. And how we have let that guide us is aligning our corporate values, what we stand for personally, and the people that we work with, the people that we frequent for dinner, where we buy our groceries. I mean, we can go down the list. And basically what I'm talking about is we vote with our dollars every day.
Every day.
And it's a very important concept to us. And I don't think people understand how important that $1 vote is. It's almost more powerful than your vote at the ballot, because you're really saying yes to this and no to that. And it's very important. And we focus on what we're aligned with, and that's what we do. And it helps us get through some of the tougher times when we know we're fighting good fights and standing up for what we believe in.
Absolutely. And we support charities and organizations that support us. And we would encourage you to do that, especially here in Connecticut with a market that's just starting. You need to make sure that you are building your team. We look all around all the time and are hypercritical of all the people that we surround ourselves with, and for whom we are casting our votes with our dollars.
We choose to do business with people that support our ideals. And that basically means we won't do business with people that are trying to recriminalize this plant, that are going for back to the drug war type mentalities in some of these regulated states. We do not support people that do not support home grow. We think it is a very important principle, and everyone should be able to grow this plant. We are not fans of pushing for monopolies and limited licenses. That's just not a game that we think supports everybody's interest in getting a license in this industry. We definitely do not support companies that subvert or manipulate social equity programs. That's just not anything that we're behind. We don't do business with racists or misogynists or people that associate with racists or misogynists. And it kind of seems obvious, right? Of course we wouldn't do those things, but you'd just be surprised how many people turn a blank eye to bad behavior.
For example, if there is a company that in honor of Juneteenth puts on sale all flavors of grape, banana, and watermelon products, they're fucking racists. You shouldn't do business with them. And I'm not making that up. That actually happened. And I'm sure a lot of people here know what that is. If you don't, look it up, because it is one of the largest companies in America today. So we've spoken about passion and principles and ideals, because this is a really tough business. And that, again, there's a lot to figure out every single day, but something needs to drive you. But also, how do we take that passion and make sure that we're focused on that North Star every single day? And over the past 14 years together, Meg and I have developed 3 rules that really help guide us every day. We really find that there's nothing that doesn't fit into these rules, even though they have developed an awful lot over time. So rule number 1,
stay out of jail. Now, when we started in Colorado, that was a very, very real concern, because we were truly the first regulated medical market with rules on the books. Our regulators were meeting with the DEA, the FBI. You name it, they were meeting with them all the time, because this was a very new landscape. And at that time, I had thousands of plants, way more than the 99 plant minimum mandatory minimum sentence. That was a real concern. We didn't know what was going to happen. We were crossing our fingers and hope it didn't happen to us. And with that, we made some real decisions as a family to make sure that assets weren't in my name, that if something were to happen, we had a backup plan. We had separate bank accounts. Lots of things that you have to think about, because here's the deal. People were being arrested in our industry at that moment in time. It was happening. And it wasn't just owners, by the way. It was store managers. It was bud tenders. It was all kinds of things that were really scary. And so we survived that. We didn't go to jail. But, and by the way, we've come a long way. We've come
an awful long way. In fact, we just sued the federal government. So we're really excited about that.
Very excited to be
We sued the federal government, telling them that cannabis is not federally illegal if it's all within state lines. And so we're really proud of that action that we're taking. But again, we've come very, very far. And look, I was, for the first 5 years or so that I was working in cannabis, I was exclusively working in states where it was not legal. I was advocating for decriminalization and for medical cannabis. And look, and every time that I landed in Nashville, Tennessee, I was followed until I got back on the plane by law enforcement. It was a real thing that was happening. And I was just expressing my rights to try to influence and change law. Hell, in Florida, another state that we had a very large hand in legalizing medical cannabis in, there was this one time I was going to meet with the mayor and some of his staff, some important politician guy, and was driving 6 hours and lost cell service during that time. And all of a sudden cell service came on and my phone blew up with text messages and voice messages. And every single one of them said, "Don't go into the meeting. You are going to be arrested." I was going to be arrested essentially under a disorderly conduct law that was saying that I was going there with the express purpose of corrupting the morals of the community. It was a Friday afternoon and I was going to be held in jail until Monday morning just for advocating.
Is that the first time you were corrupting a community?
I've done that
Okay,
consistently
that's
and proudly
kinda what I
for my
thought.
entire life.
That's what I thought.
Oh, no, I did not go to that. Come on,
Yeah.
Florida jail?
A weekend
You
in
kidding
Florida
me?
jail.
I do not want to
Roll
do
the
that.
dice, Eric. Let's see how it goes.
Not rolling that dice.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the good news, things have changed a lot since then. We have lots of regulated markets now, and even a lot of legacy markets have a fairly open framework to exist without a big threat of law enforcement busting down your door.
But, honestly, the rule of stay out of jail is still just as apt today because there are an awful lot of jails that you are going to have to pay with your time and with your money. And so we'd like to talk about some of those right now.
So what we'll start with is licensing and regulatory jail. And anybody that's gone through the licensing process in any state knows it takes a long time to do so. And if you make one error on your application, it can kick you all the way back to the bottom of the pile. And it is painful and expensive to go through a licensing process. So the key is to make sure you truly understand everything that's being asked for. The other thing is once you're open and running, there's regulatory jail. And we know of several examples of companies that had to cease operations while they proved that they weren't doing this or proved that they weren't doing that. And can you imagine? I mean, we know companies that had grows that were red tagged. They couldn't even go in and tend to their plants because of a regulatory issue. It's just nonsense.
Another jail that you really need to stay out of, and I think this is important for anyone who's looking to start a new business as well, is zoning jail. Because people in your community, that's really where they're going to express any big issues. And again, if you're going through zoning, be super, super prepared. Anticipate everything. Know who the persons are who are going to be fighting against you. It's critically important. And also really understand the timelines. Again, we look at jail as things that cost you time or money, and zoning jail can absolutely do that from the get-go. The one wrong move, one question you don't have an answer can kick your zoning regulations, can kick you back 30, 60, 90 days at any given time. So make sure that you are staying out of zoning jail.
There are some locations that don't even have zoning board meetings every month.
That's
so
true.
If you miss, you're stuck for
Yep.
60 days or 90 days.
We've come across that in entire departments that take the summer off, and all of a sudden our business is left to sit for an extra 120 days.
That sounds expensive.
It is expensive.
Ouch. The other one is testing jail. And there's several aspects. It is not understanding the testing that is going to happen with your products. And then you get it to a testing lab and then you understand very real what's going on with your products. So that's a very real thing. And it can take you a lot of time and money to correct those, whether it be on the growing side, whether it be on the edible side. There's a lot of very real rules and regs that you need to know, and you need to work with your labs to understand how it works so that you're not surprised. Very important. The other part of that, if you're a retailer and a wholesaler, by the way, if there's only one or two testing labs and a bunch of product that needs to go through the pipeline, it's weeks I remember when we first started, I think we were at 10 to 12 weeks waiting for turnaround time. It was so painful and expensive, and it's a product that's degrading as we speak. It's not a, it's biomass. So it's one of those things where you just very much need to understand what the process is, be realistic about the time frame so that you're not just burning money, because literally sometimes it's just better just to throw it on the ground and light it on fire than to like have it seep out and go, why is this happening?
And also for those of you who are developing novel products or who have edible companies, for example, make sure that the testing facilities actually know how to test your products. That has happened in almost every market that we've been a part of. Some edible company or tincture company or something, they put products in for testing and the testing facilities don't know how to test for it. Another one, and I think many people have been in it, especially those with strong opinions, but as a business, you don't want to get into Facebook, Instagram, or any other social media jail. That can be absolutely devastating, and I see Ashley Carroll, our marketing director, is here, and it is devastating for a lot of people in your company when you work so damn hard and build an incredible audience, build a great page, a great online presence, and then you get that dreaded email or your page has been taken down. It is critical importance that you stay out of it. And by the way, I'd love to say know what keeps you in and out, but no one really knows. We can't believe it. We'll get shut down for one thing, and then the next post, I'm in there smoking a blunt in the photo, and nothing happens whatsoever. So you really can't understand, but be very, very, very careful to not have all of that work and time and money go down the drain.
And the final one we're going to talk about is investor or creditor jail. And basically what that is speaking to on the investor side is making sure you have a very firm understanding of your organizational documents and your operational documents. Make sure that if things are selectively vague, you understand why they're vague and how to work that. We had a situation where we had negative control in our operating agreement, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but it's a very important thing because one investor, if they have any type of preferential treatment in your operating agreement, can hold you back from doing anything else with your business. Very, very painful. Same with creditors. Be very careful with those agreements. Understand what those covenants are. Understand the little triggers that can basically give them access for them to come and say, give us the keys to your business for being slightly out of line with covenants or behind in payments.
Absolutely critical. So 227,108. Did anyone Google that while we were talking? So do you know what it is? Those are the number of people who were arrested last year with a marijuana crime, cannabis crime. Just last year. Just last year. So, on to rule number 2.
Don't go where you're not wanted. Just don't do it.
Absolutely. And I really want to be clear here for the activists and folks who are looking to make change. This rule is for business. I highly encourage activists and those who want to make positive change to go where you're not wanted and do what you need to do to make the change to free the plant. Hell, I've had death threats in many states, and I've literally been called Satan many times for advocating for what I do. Hell, I've had multiple death threats right here in the state of Connecticut for lobbying for decriminalization.
But for business, this is, it's a hard and fast rule for us. Cannabis is hard enough. You're going to hear that about 25 more times, and I'm hoping that it sinks in a tiny little bit. But basically, there are people and communities that support cannabis. Start with those. And most importantly, just don't go where your success is not wanted. And that's the kind of the communities that put together lovely ordinances that have all of these crazy things to them. And basically, it's meant to hamstring you as a company. And that's just not worth it.
And really dig in on those. Understand if you're a retailer, where are you being placed and what are the hours of operation? And by the way, do those work with your business plan? You need to make sure that you're totally planning on this. And also going through this, know who the people are that you need to have on your side. Who do you need to be silent? What exactly is the bureaucratic process? There are processes that will go on for years and years. And more importantly, you always need to advocate, but assess where you are at any point throughout the process. I'll tell you, we had a client that we were brought on to help in the town of Lowell, Massachusetts. And we knew what the process was. We knew how things were going to be moving forward there. And one of the big parts was a very tight timeline where you needed to have multiple sites lined up. And on top of that, you really needed to have the local community on your side. That was really what was working. When I say local community, I mean the direct neighborhood. It was critically important. And we went into the public meeting that we held, that we paid to hold. And as we walked in, we were greeted by a mob of about 200 angry folks. They weren't carrying pitchforks, but
they might as well have been.
Might as well have been. And look, we also knew that we did not have the time to turn these people around. We could not get them on our side. We assessed, we saw what was going on, and we got the hell out of Lowell. That being said, 2 weeks later, we found an incredible community for our clients that actually asked us to help write the rules and regulations, found sites, found that community, and it was a success. It still is a success to this day.
I think you brought up a really important point. The earlier you can get involved in those communities that are thinking about ordinances and get in their ear and help them draft it, the better. And the reason for that is because you need to know what a win looks like, and you will know more than they do. You know better than they do. And they really do want the help. I would say a lot of municipalities that are passionate about seeing this business in their communities are desperately in need of thoughtful guidance from a business. And those important questions are, where will you be located? Where are they zoning you? Is it a good space? Is it a true retail space if you're a retail client? Is it an industrial space if you're an industrial side of it? And making sure that if you are retail, you're not being relegated to an industrial park, which at the end of the day makes, as more and more cannabis companies come online and more states come online, that makes it tough to do business. Makes it tough to draw people to your location because you're not the one and only anymore. There's many of you. And then the other thing is there's always a smell ordinance. It always comes up. I mean, I don't know how many of you have gone through any type of process in licensing, but it is the first thing that comes up. First it's the smell, and then it's the traffic. Those are like the two big things. If you, going back to zoning jail, the smell ordinance is the easiest one for one soccer mom, PTO president, church leader to get really upset with you and use it to cause incredible pain for your business. We have a very good friend and a company that we do a lot of wholesaling with back and forth that is embroiled in it right now. And it started with a very sweet little town in Western Massachusetts, and they were very open to cannabis and cannabis businesses. And then one guy said, I want a license. And I'm like, great, you should get a license. And then he got a newspaper article that said, we're going to turn this town into the cannabis capital of the world. Can you imagine what happened? Can you just imagine that a couple of people read that and went, what is happening to our little, there's not even a stoplight in this town, okay? Not even a stoplight, but they were going to be the cannabis capital of the world. We'll talk about lighting on fire the hair of people that really figured out very quickly that cannabis was not something they wanted to support. And so even existing businesses that are already operational, contributing to the community, amazing little businesses, are now being sued by neighbors about smell, or about the vibration of the fans in their greenhouse disturbing them in their house.
Shaking their foundation. The fans a half mile away.
Yeah.
Anyway, you can definitely get hamstrung on that side. And another thing to really look at is when you're determining where you're wanted or not, look at the laws, rules, and regulations. And they can tell you whether or not you're wanted or your business type is wanted as well. Look here at Connecticut, and simple fact that there was an option for large corporations and very wealthy individuals to get the most lucrative license types. That should tell you.
Just write me a check.
Just write me a check. That should tell you about the types of businesses that they're looking to have in their state. Same thing if you have an edibles company and you're looking to go to a state that doesn't allow edibles or that has some rules and regulations that are really going to screw with your business model, which we hope is a successful business model, don't go into that state and hope and chain that a change is going to come that is going to make your business be able to be successful.
One other key, if you have to bribe your municipality with fire trucks or bridge work or tons of cash in order to have them allow you in, they don't want you. They don't want you. It's just, you're just not welcome.
Every single time that we've seen that happen, they've regretted it because it's not a one-time thing. It's year after year after year. So you're not wanted in that municipality.
On the flip side of that is communities that have no limits and don't care and want everybody. And that also can be a very difficult place to operate, especially for fledgling markets that we're all kind of figuring out and understanding our consumer base. So if there's a ton of competition in one small town, that is going to make it very difficult to operate. Very, very difficult, especially if you're retail.
Completely agree. Completely agree. We've seen it time and time again when there's dispensaries. But I think there was 27 on our one street in Denver, very large street, but still lot of competition. So how do you make sure that you are wanted in a community? Well, it takes a lot of work. It definitely takes a lot of work, and it's not just before the license. It's continuing to be a really proactive part of your community and constantly be the best part that you want, that you could possibly be. That means getting involved. That's joining the chambers of commerce. That's volunteering. That's showing up. That's getting your hair cut and eating locally and supporting people locally, hiring locally, donate, volunteer, show up.
Joining civic clubs, participating in big events in your town. Those are great ways to garner favor. And how that works at the end of the day is if there is somebody that comes after you and you've done a really good job in your town, you'd be surprised at how fast that town will just smack that person right down. So trust me, it works.
It's been great. Seeing the wagons circled locally for us has been one of the most heartfelt things that I've ever experienced here in the cannabis industry.
Very true. I remember in Colorado, we couldn't even get anybody to take our money. We
could not give money
We couldn't
away.
donate. We couldn't join the chamber. We couldn't advertise in the business journal. Just was nothing that we could do. And now we get tons of requests for donations and tons of requests to join organizations and volunteer. And so it's a nice switch that, 11 years.
Yeah, these things are available to you now, and you really need to take advantage of them. As Meg said, when we were first in Colorado, we were not allowed to join the Chamber of Commerce, and the Denver Business Journal would not take our money. Now, both Meg and I are on the boards of directors of our local chambers of commerce. In fact, another really proud moment is our little Western Mass company was awarded Corporate Citizen of the Year by our Chamber of Commerce for this year. And we've got a regular column in the Berkshire Business Journal now. So it's available now. Take advantage of it. Make sure that you're doing the work to be successful in your community.
Be a leader of your company and a leader of your community. I think that's a very good thing to do if you're in this industry. So 24.4%. Any ideas? That's the percentage of U.S. cannabis companies that are actually profitable. Ouch. So these delays, these legal challenges, every single thing that takes money out of your pocket or time out of your pocket eats away at your bottom line, period. And it's an expensive business to do. Don't make it more expensive by making bad decisions right out of the gate.
Absolutely. You need to be diligent in every single piece because that 24.4% of profitable companies has a flip side. And that means that 75% of licenses have a license to lose money. So
Number 3.
this one is really important to us, and it's also been the hardest. We've learned the hardest lessons on it. But rule number 3 is no assholes. That is really, really important. No assholes. And this definitely is the hardest rule for us to follow. We have learned some really hard lessons from this. And we're also human beings that really try to find the best and the good in people. And so it's tough to do that and also, have your have your back up and looking for the assholes around every corner, because I promise you there are people out there who are looking to fuck you over in this business.
What?
Yes.
No.
There's like 2, maybe 3.
Okay, well, we've met them then, so we at least know who they are. So I will say this, and I'm passionate about this. Cannabis is a team sport, period. It's a team sport. And that means we work together, we put our arms together, and we do things together to get things done. Be diligent about the people on your team. We've all been on teams. We've all been part of teams in some way in our life, and we all know what happens when there's a wink link or somebody who's trying to take you down from the inside. Don't choose them. Some of the ways that we have learned through painful experience to do better is check references. If they're an investor, ask other people that they've invested with. Have very frank conversations. Don't be afraid to ask hard questions. You want to know now, because when they're selling you about investing, they're giving you the best face. They're doing the song and dance. And you can't just trust that. You need to do references. And that's the same no matter what. If it's financial partners, investors, creditors, banks, beware of the people that are offering something too good to be true. Lease salebacks, loan to own. Those are all sound really great if you don't have a lot of capital in your pocket, but it's potentially a very big pothole.
Yeah, we've seen time and again across markets where 20, 30, $40 million companies are taken over by a creditor who loaned $1 million out. You just really need to be super careful about that. And we'd call those assholes.
They are definitely assholes. So I'll go back to my story about negative control in our business. We are not attorneys.
No.
We did not sleep at a Holiday Inn Express. We don't have any business opining and writing operating agreements, but we have people that do that for us, right? But you need to, even though you have professionals that help you do it, you need to understand them. And this goes back to this investor group that was part of our team in the early part of our Massachusetts business. And we were successful really quickly out of the gate. And so they immediately thought, let's take money out of the business instead of finish the business plan. And you can imagine, as passionate operators, we have a business plan. We have a vision of what we wanted to be when we grew up, so to speak. And this negative control prevented us for almost 2 years.
At least 2 years on expansion of our business and executing our business plan. Yeah.
And it was really painful because it was also in those 2 years where financial markets kind of dried up a little bit, where equity was harder to raise. That's a real thing. We just want to be really, really careful when you're picking the people that are going to be part of operating your business, especially when they're not actually in the trenches with you. They're on the back just looking at the money or looking at this or looking at that, thinking they're going to armchair quarterback you.
Beware of elected officials as well. You need them to be part of your team, but also same thing, check references, know their backgrounds. We have worked across the country and had persons that we thought were on our sides, and they had other agendas. There's one particular dickhead from Tennessee, a state rep, who really had zero interest in helping us whatsoever to pass medical cannabis there, had complete other agendas. But we've also seen this when in municipalities as well. The mayor, who is super, super supportive of your organization coming into town, that's great. But if it has to come with hiring his brother-in-law or hiring his son, or hey, my uncle's buddy, that kind of thing, you got to make sure that you are avoiding those persons at all costs.
Lobbyists and consultants are also an area where it's very easy now to check references. Back in the day when we started, there was not a ton of lobbyists would even touch us, and we were the consultants. I mean, there just wasn't really a lot other than former regulators who decided to make a lot of money leaving with everything that they learned. The good news is you have a lot more to choose from. And I would be very careful if you're working with consultants who claim to know exactly how to help you build your business. And if they've never operated a business, I'm going to say they probably don't know everything you think they know. So just be super careful, especially if you're giving them equity, especially if you're signing long-term contracts and management agreements with them, because 9 times out of 10, they're not really going to be able to help you.
Yes, that's we've seen that lesson learned by a lot of folks across this country. Another group that you really need to be very careful about when you're looking at maintaining the ideals and principles of your own company, and that's your suppliers. That's not just the folks that, once you're operating, but the roofers, the snowplow guys, the people who are giving you your uniforms. If you are paying the green tax, that person's an asshole. You don't have to pay that anymore. There are enough companies, enough people who understand that this is a legitimate business that can be run professionally, and make sure that they're not paying you extra. You might want to have other persons call and get a quote that you are looking for a non-cannabis company, and then see how that goes. Thank you.
Oh, the green tax.
Oh, wait, one other thing I wanted to add on that.
Go for it.
The suppliers of cannabis products. Make sure that they are people that you also agree with. Don't buy from the people who are doing that Juneteenth post, that racist Juneteenth post. Don't buy for people who are actually out there advocating for the recriminalization, or for monopolies, or who are subverting social equity. And by the way, these are our versions of assholes. You might have your own, but this is how we look at for our own view.
I think that's a really important point. You all have your own ideals and what's important to you, and that's how you frame this. Along with don't buy from people, don't sell to them. Don't sell to people that are actively against what you believe in as a company and as a human. It's at some point the dollars aren't worth it. They just aren't.
I agree with that 100%. And other ones that you really need to make sure that you're being really careful about and checking references are trade organizations, and also activist organizations and nonprofits. Again, nonprofits, it's really easy to see if they're legitimate. You can see if they're spending more money going to conferences and paying executives than they are their core values and what you donated to them. Don't actually donate to those people anymore. Make sure that you are paying attention to the trade organizations. Now, I am a huge advocate in joining together. As Meg said, I believe it wholeheartedly as well. Cannabis is a team sport. Make sure that you're on the right team. Massachusetts very famously had a split of 2 trade organizations, and one of them was a very much an exclusionary trade organization. Again, wanted to recriminalize, use cannabis dollars to fund law enforcement. They were looking to really change the social equity in a predatory fashion. These are groups that if that's your group, you get on that team, that's perfectly fine. But for us, that was not the group, not the team we wanted to be a part of. Know who they are, know what they stand for, because you're building your team.
Employees and employers. So this one is really, really important, but also very hard, especially going back to, we like to find the good in people. We really work hard at finding the good in people. But you don't want to sacrifice your team for that asshole employee that no matter what you do, just keeps creating issues for you. And I can just promise, exit quickly, rip that Band-Aid off, be done. It's better to be shorthanded than to allow the poison to spread. If you're working in the industry and you're working for someone whose values that you don't support, or you all of a sudden see you're super passionate about social equity and they're out lobbying against it, leave. Please don't support that. Please don't support that.
And also sticking with those ideals and building your team is of critical importance. And I want to point out someone in the audience, Greg Krasnowski, you might know him as ChemDog, who is our director of cultivation. And I know from our conversations, there's no way he'd be a part of our team if we had compromised our ethics and morals and ideals at any point along. And it's that kind of deep passion that brings real loyalty to your team and real loyalty from your employees.
Yep.
So, folks, this is our passion. This is what drives us, again, because this business is really, really hard. We encourage you that if you don't have passion for this business, it's just not the business for you. It is too damn hard. But there's a lot of ways that you can find that passion. And keep in mind, there's the things that we're talking about and the values and ethics that we're espousing and the ways that we run our business, there is a complete opposite flip side of that as well. We know that absolutely we are the assholes to a lot of people. When
Proudly.
we sold
Proudly.
Absolutely. When we were advocating for home grow and selling clones in our stores, we got calls up the ass from people saying, you are assholes for doing this. This is going to ruin a business. This is going to ruin cannabis sales in this state. It certainly didn't. It was great for our business. And by the way, we're super proud to do that.
I'm really proud of what we stand for, and we obviously don't hold back on those types of things, and that's not for everybody, but that is how we do it. I really am proud of the fact that we draw lines in the sand every day. I'm proud that we look at employees as assets, not liabilities. They're a very important part of the team. And really, even though we parted ways with investors that thought we were assholes, and I wish them well, but at the end of the day, our company is much better for moving past those pain points that just can be avoided. Just don't do work with people that make your life hard.
Absolutely. And say what you're going to do and do what you said you were going to do. So with that, we're really pleased that you could all be with us here today. And we'd be happy to answer any questions if anyone wants to ask us anything.
No?
No?
All right.
All right, everyone, thanks. Really hope, oh, wait, there is one question. Well, so that's it feels like that's a new thing, but it's really become a dominant thing is who are you selling to? And clearly, again, relating back to the 24.4%, there is a lot of aging bills out there for sure. I'd say it's the same damn thing. Check references. Right now, a lot of the people who are not paying their bills, it's pretty public information, but we will not, look, if someone needs 60 days to pay their bill, they're not running the kind of business that should work out well. So I would say be really, really fierce about it. You know, getting a $10,000 sale might be great, but if you have to hope and pray that you're ever going to see that money, I would not take the risk. And you know, there's a lot of information. Again, references are really important. Find someone else who is selling to them as well.
I would say payables are a huge issue, obviously, in the cannabis industry right now. And manage that risk thoughtfully. Know what that number is. Know what you can be outstanding as far as those payables go, and receivables. Excuse me. But I feel like it just is a really important thing that it's a business decision, and some people have more risk tolerance and can go have a larger outstanding balance of what's owed to them than others. We made a business decision on exactly what we were comfortable with, and that significantly lowered our exposure at wholesale. But that's just because we're a tiny little cultivation. So one $50,000 invoice that doesn't get paid would be really, really painful for us. And other people have different risk tolerances or different business plans. And so $1 million in somebody's not paying you your $1 million bill, that they can survive that, or they have 12 other states that are supporting the lack of revenue for that one. It's a really tough thing, and I think the most scary part is there are businesses that are actively deciding that that's how they're going to work. This is now their business plan. We're just not going to pay people. We'll see who screams the loudest or who goes and gets an attorney, and anybody that doesn't, yeah, screw it. We're not going to pay them. It's a incredibly challenging moment. The good news is you know who's operational, you know who's out there, especially from a wholesale standpoint. So it's easier to reach out. But we are advocating for some type of system in Massachusetts, and I hope that other states adopt some type of way to report this information so that you at least go in knowing what you know. That's important. It's awful to not get paid.
Are there any other questions? If not, I know that the XPO Canna judging, the awards are coming up soon. I want to tell you that I was a judge for the sativa and some really great stuff there. It's super exciting. I hope everyone enjoys that as well, and enjoy the rest of your show here at XPO Canna. And thank you. Have a great day, y'all.